Well, hello there. Welcome along. It's really good to see you again. And today we've got a box opening and review. And we're going to be moving up the scales and going for something in O gauge. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at one of the latest offerings from Dapol. Well, the blue and silver box can mean only one thing: the latest offering from Dapol. These haven't been in the shops very long, but I've been wanting a brake van for myself for the garden layout. I've got the locomotive, I've got the wagons, and now I know that it's been suggested to me that I really need a towed brake van to go with that pannier tang, but ready to run, this really was the only thing I could think of that is currently available. And it's catalogue number 7F-200-006. And this is a BR 20-ton brake van, number B952978 in Bauxite Livery. Now, Dapol have brought out a number of these wagons in liveries ranging from London and North Eastern Railway right through to one suitable for the tops period, lettered up as a CAP and a CAO. So that's CAP, CAO, generally just meaning a brake van either with through vacuum piping or no brakes whatsoever other than the handbrake inside. This particular example appears to be one of the versions with handbrake only, even though it's in freight bauxite. So I'm not really quite sure what the crack was with BR as to what dictated whether the vans were painted grey or were painted brown. My understanding was that the brown wagons were supposed to have either train brakes or through train piping, but that doesn't seem to quite hold true with things such as brake vans. Now, the packaging is interesting. There's an extra insert here. I just draw attention to that. It goes in the bottom and then fits flush with the side of the box. And I think it's just extra protection from side impacts from otherwise distorting this and potentially damaging the wagon. Also on top, in a little baggie, we've got the 3-link, I got told off for this before, the Instanta couplings, which to the uninitiated look an awful lot like 3-link couplings. And it's a bit of a change from the way that Dapol normally apply these to the wagons. Normally when you open the box, they're supposed to be on the wagon, but I found on a few things they've ended up loose in the box. So perhaps it's a good development that Dapol, recognising that, have decided that it's probably easier. It's very tight fit. Easier to apply them in a baggie for the user to then subsequently fit themselves. Right, let's get some of this packaging out of the way, and let me just put that on its side because I don't really want it to roll off into the deep blue yonder. And I'm just going to try and get some of this packaging out of my way. But what we can see here comes out of the box actually with all of this foam just to, and it would appear that in getting the foam out, I see. No, this is interesting, very interesting. There's, I'm not entirely sure how you would do that. There appears to be like very careful here not to break it. All I can say is that is like a guardrail which, as far as I can tell, would lie across there into, there seems to be like a little place to insert it there, and it would just sort of bar this off. So if the guard were out on the veranda whilst the train were in motion, it just meant that if it lurched unexpectedly, he wouldn't find himself being lurched off the wagon. And it might also mean that when passing through stations, it could better help the guard from protecting his van from being invaded by people who thought they would get themselves a free lift. So we're just got to be very careful how we get these out, because I can see that those little wire handrails are there in all four corners of the van. First impressions, well, there's a really good weight to this, and actually it's interesting. I know I said it looked like it was an unfitted van, but actually when I'm looking at the end there, we can see the vacuum pipe. So this would be a through vacuum piped van. And I think the understanding with this was it was very rare to have a fully fitted brake van. And the reasoning was you were going to have a guard in the van anyway, and it was extra equipment to maintain. And inside the van there would be like a pipe with a almost like a lid on a hinge. We've shown it actually when we went to Oswestry. I went inside one of the brake vans and kind of did show the valve, and if the guard needed to apply the train brakes for whatever reason, he could lift that valve and it would destroy the vacuum and the train brakes would all come on without the van itself actually needing to have its own train applied vacuum brakes, and the guard could then screw down the handbrake as well. The weight on this is really quite impressive, and I can feel that there is an awful lot of separately applied detail. So I'm just being quite careful and cautious how I handle this, because I can see that all of these little handrails, such as there, 3 parts across there, 2 more there, that down there, another one there, and that on the end, plus the lamp bracket. And then, as you saw when I opened it, we've also got this posable piece as well. There's an awful lot of separately applied detail, and it comes straight out of the box. The only thing you don't get applied from the factory is those instanter couplings, and they just get applied through the drawbars there. We've got fully sprung buffers all round, and if you can see there, we've got the round type buffers, and there's actually a good spring action on them. If I turn it over, yeah, you can see the spring actions on the back there, just as it would be on a real wagon. In fact, whilst we've got it upside down, it's worth pointing out that we've got the outline of the brake van chassis. It's actually quite nicely done, to the point where it's not a basic chassis like you see on the newer Hornby wagons or the Oxford Rail wagons, but there's even a representation of the sort of corner bracing as well, which is interesting to see. I'm not really sure how you'd normally get to see all of this other than the great big hand of God picking this thing up and turning it over, but it is there. We also have factory applied all this sort of brake gear, these stretcher bars that run to the brake shoes, and we've got like a clasp brake. So we've got 4 brake shoes, and the reason for this is the wagon was ballasted up to 20 tonnes through application of concrete ballast, and also in some instances between the frames they just filled it up with scrap metal, and I believe in preservation it's been discovered on some vans being rebuilt that some of the scrap metal that was filled between the frames was actually remnants of cut-up steam locomotives from the works where these were built. So, you know, whereas these locomotives might have been long scrapped, chunks of them did persist as the ballast weights in some of these vans. The wheels themselves, we've got the 3-disc solid-faced wheels. They're very free-running. They run in a sort of, I say they're very free-running. This one, it's popped out of the, let me just try and match that up. There we are. Now it's free-running. They are pretty good, and they go into metal bearing faces, so unlike in the 00 wagons, they're not really too much at risk of wearing the hole bigger and bigger, and certainly some of the first release Bachmann branch line 16-ton mineral wagons, I've had to retire from active running because they've worn those oval. These footboards on the side, again, are separately applied, and they're quite a springy plastic by the feel of it. And that's good because this is an area of the van that's going to get handled a lot in regular use. So it's good to see that there's a lot of thought gone into this design to make sure that it kind of stands the testament of time of being handled. In terms of the tampo printed detail, well, we have a wealth on here. And being in O gauge, there's a lot more scope for these to be much crisper, much clearer, and we're not disappointed with this Dapol offering. We've got the wagon build plate on the sole bar, and it's big enough in O gauge that I can read it with my naked eye. We've also got some details here in a plate. I'm looking at it upside down, so forgive me if it'll be obvious to you, but it's not to me, because I'm trying to read this upside down through my slightly worn out middle-aged eyes. But there's a lot of details on there. And we've also got over here, I think this is something to do with underframe and body overhaul dates, so it would be when it was last overhauled, when it was next due, just things like that. We've also got its weight. We don't get a tear weight because the brake van always weighs the same. It's not a load carrying van, so 20 tons is just what it really weighs, and the weight of the guard and his gear would be insignificant compared to that. Well, at least it should be, unless he was very keen on pies. We've got the running number there, and then further up, because this is the later period BR bauxite, we've got the overhead warning flashes. And I chose this wagon because there's a part of me that thinks that if I buy some BR blue diesel locomotives at a later date, I kind of wanted a wagon that was suitable to run with both the steam locomotives from the earlier BR period and diesel locomotives in the BR Blue for the sort of late 1970s period. And this wagon is the offering from Dapol that fits the bill. If you really want a much later period wagon lettered up in tops, as I alluded to before, there are two offerings that I've seen lettered up as a CAO and a CAP wagon. There's also BR plain grey. I believe that there's a bauxite in the earlier BR period without the overhead warning flashes, and London and North Eastern Railway version. Now, when we reviewed the ventilated van, the roof came off quite easily, and I'm just curious whether the roof on this comes off to allow access to the inside. And it does. It's a lot tighter than the ventilated van, but it does come off. So we've got, it's interesting actually, the stovepipe there is completely see-through. I don't know if I can angle that right so you can see through the stovepipe, but it has been moulded, so it really is a genuine hole all the way through. And the only reason for that I can think of is perhaps you could install a smoke unit inside this, and it would sort of smoke gently through the stovepipe there, though that seems a lot of work for little gain, and you're more likely to melt and distort the van with the heat. We've also got these two torpedo vents on the roof and the representation of the rain strips above the door. And I'm looking at the other side. Those torpedo vents are separately applied plastic detail, and they are really nicely done. Inside the wagon, well, there is no interior. It's interesting to note that some of the 00 brake vans that are coming out new from the likes of Hornby and Oxford Rail are featuring elements of a detailed interior. But in O gauge, where you're more likely to be able to see in, there's no evidence of that here. But I don't find that a detraction, to be perfectly honest with you, because I think that that is detail for the sake of detail, and it's not something that particularly adds to the model in any way other than to the cost. We can see, though, that we've got full glazing on the doors and the end veranda panels there, and we've also got glazing in the duckets too. And the reason for these, again, when I was at Oswestry, I sat in the brake van, and you could see there's kind of, on the real vans, there's a seat just underneath these duckets so the guard could sit there, push his head back into the ducket, and the purpose of these was so you could look out through these little windows and you could look along the train to see if there were any kinds of problems, and it just protected the guard from the elements. And it's one of the reasons, I suppose, that these vans persisted in frontline use when other vans without the duckets were either withdrawn or cascaded into the engineers' fleets. I'm going to get that roof back on, and actually the fact that this roof is a separately applied detail means we get a nice crisp demarcation between the dark colour of the roof and the body colour, because they are two separate mouldings. Other things that have caught my eye, well, the planking detail is very well done. It's not too deep, but it's not too faded out that it doesn't show up, and certainly weathering on this wagon will really bring it up a treat. We've also got these representations of what would have been concrete weights on either end, and these have actually been done very, very well. It, in my mind, looks believable as a concrete weight, and there's a good depth and thickness to it. They do appear to be separately applied pieces, but we've got a representation of the bauxite body colour on the side, but what would have been probably plain concrete on the top, and I actually think that it's come out rather well. Overall, as a new release from Dapol, this is a welcome addition to their ready-to-run fleet, and I'm going to give this a good solid 9.8 out of 10. There's very little to detract for me. The only thing I might say is that some of these parts, like these handrails, are very delicate and might be prone to breaking, but really, I suppose, that's not really a criticism. It just shows how far we've come, that detail to that level is coming as standard from the manufacturer. Well, I hope that's been really informative to you. Don't forget to like this video and share it too if you know of somebody who you think would appreciate seeing this video. And until next time, this is me, Kirk, saying thanks again for watching, and you take really good care of yourself, and I'll be seeing you again when we've got another video. But until then, bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon, and a special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Mark Anthony, Michael Churchwood, Mark McShane, and Bob 310. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.